If you're hoping for an increase in horsepower this year, I've got bad news for you. Fans were upset with the fuel remaining graphic that NBC had on Sunday, and let's talk a little silly season real fast. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. To cap off the Caden Honeycutt story that we talked about yesterday or this morning, depending on whenever you watched that video, Caden Honeycutt will drive the O2 truck for Young's Motorsport this weekend, this Friday, at Watkins Glen in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series so that he can, retain his playoff eligibility. And then starting at Richmond next week, he'll take over the 52 truck for Stuart Friesen, and he will finish out the season with that 52 team before moving on to Tricon Garage, which is his expected move for the 2026 season. Obviously, Nice and that 45 truck will have Connor Zilic in the truck this weekend at Watkins Glen. They're hoping for a win for the Owners' Championship, all of that. And then they'll have Bailey Curry for the remainder of the season. Listen, everybody's, I guess, walking away happy with this, which is fine. We'll all move on from the emotional decision-making of some teams out there. Let's get into what we're going to talk about today. We're going to start off with an increase in horsepower. Earlier this year on the NASCAR Holler Talk podcast, they mentioned that, the tides were moving towards an increase in horsepower. It was being discussed. NASCAR is open to it. It seems like the teams were open to it. And there's a chance we were going to see it this year. Spoiler alert, that can has been kicked right down the road once again. NASCAR Senior Vice President of Competition, Elton Sawyer. I can't remember what Elton Sawyer's title is off the top of my head, but he was on SiriusXM NASCAR on Tuesday, and he mentioned that the increase in horsepower won't come until 2026 at the earliest, and that was super disheartening. Just like a stab in the heart, just a punch in the gut, a sack tap, if you will, of just disappointment. Because I think we all wanted to see that increase in horsepower. It's one thing that fans have been begging for. It's one thing that drivers have been begging for. And once again, we are just not going to get it this year. Now, I understand. I know there's probably some people at One Daytona or some people in Charlotte watching this being like, there's a lot of reasons. I understand the reasons, right? I understand that there's a few things that go into this. I understand cost is a big issue as a part of this. I understand getting parts is a big issue for this as well. I understand it. But when you talk about it, people get their hopes up. You have a product like what we saw on Sunday at Iowa, which again, by Iowa standards, I didn't think was bad, especially for this generation of car. Frustrating for sure, but it's more on the track, in my opinion. When you only repave the bottom two lanes on a progressive banked racetrack, you limit everybody to running the bottom. You're going to be stuck with a track that nobody can really pass on. Either repave the whole thing or don't pave it at all. That way you can use those different progressive banking. You probably see a different race if that happens. At the same time, though, this car is inherently flawed. Like we talked about, it needs more horsepower. It needs a narrower tire. It needs a complete, aerodynamic shift. It needs to go from being nose up, rear down to being nose down in the front. And it's just not going to happen because having the nose up allows air to get underneath the car. So the underbody creates downforce, everything about that, which is great in sports cars. It's not great for a stock car on an oval. It creates for subpar racing. So everybody's hoping to get this increase in horsepower. NASCAR had talked about it. The teams seem open to it. The drivers are begging for it. And now we're not going to get it. And it's not like we're getting a massive increase in horsepower, right? Like right now, the current package is about 670 horsepower. They're talking about going to 750. So it's only an increase of 80 horsepower. Your standard Scion XB, level of horsepower. But is it going to make a difference? Who knows? But it's going to make people happy. Obviously, I think everybody knows that you're not really going to make a huge difference until you probably get up to like 900 horsepower. But ultimately, you and I and everybody else knows that that's not going to happen. If you see all my social bios, there's always a thing in there that says suits hate horsepower. I'm not saying NASCAR suits hate horsepower. I'm not saying the OEM suits hate horsepower. Somebody in a suit hates horsepower. That's why we're at this 670 horsepower package. And ultimately, we just need more. That's the answer here. The other frustrating part is them being like, we're trying to determine which tracks should get that increase in horsepower. Here's a simple solution. All of them should. Outside of Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta, all the remaining racetracks should get that increase in horsepower. Do it on road courses. Do it on short tracks. Do it on intermediates. Do it everywhere. Because obviously when we went from 550 on the intermediate during the test up to 670 horsepower, the cars raced extremely well. All right, in theory, if we increase it to 750, they should continue to race well. You would hope so, at least. Plus, it's going to create some off-throttle time. That's good for everybody. That's going to create passing. That's going to create a lot better racing. And that's the hope on short tracks as well. Whether that be Bristol, Dover, Richmond, Martinsville, Iowa, Phoenix. More horsepower means that you're either going to A, burn the tires off more, or B, hopefully have more off-throttle time. In theory, should create more racing. I get it. 750 is not a huge increase in horsepower. I understand that. A narrow tire would help out a lot there as well. But man, I just wish we were going to see it this year. North Wilkesboro would have been the perfect place to test it at for the All-Star race, but now we're not going to do that. Richmond, in 2 weeks, perfect place to roll this out. Not going to happen there. Not going to happen for Bristol. Not going to happen for Martinsville. Not going to happen for Phoenix for the finale as well. And it just feels like, once again, that can was kicked down the road. The carrot was dangled in front of us. We couldn't get it. We saw it. We wanted it so badly. And then it just poof goes away like a mirage once again. And hey, hopefully it does happen in 2026. But I have a feeling we're going to get to 2026 and it's going to get pushed again. And then eventually we're just going to get a Gen 8 car, and who knows what that's going to look like. So for now, it's not happening in 2026, and it's a big time bump. NASCAR fans were convinced that NBC was lying to them on Sunday during the Cup Series race at Iowa Speedway because of their fuel remaining graphic. So if you missed it, in the closing laps of the race, William Byron is out there leading, and with 10 laps to go, the fuel remaining graphic that NBC had up said that he had 4% of fuel left. Now, in theory, he should have run out of fuel based on their graphic, and as you know, he went on to win the race and did a burnout, did run out of fuel there, and fans were just not happy about this at all. They could not wrap their head around the fact that the graphic was wrong. Here's the thing about the graphic. The graphic is just a guesstimation. NBC has no idea what the fuel level is in William Byron's car or any of the other 35 cars out on the racetrack, or 37, however many were there last week at Iowa. It is just purely a guess based on what a Cup car averages in fuel mileage, how much fuel it has versus how many laps it can go. Then we're going to take that. They'll take into account caution laps as well for the most part, like what are your average caution laps here, but that doesn't take into account how much fuel that William Byron is saving, how much fuel he's saving under a caution as well. And that's where the disconnect happens out there, because you heard Rudy Fugle, his crew chief, on the radio begging him to save fuel, back the corner up even further. I mean, he's lifting at the start finish line, and NBC can't do those calculations on the fly there just because they're not going to. Now, I know earlier this year, Prime had their burn bar and AI technology that, took into account all those variables that I was just talking about there. And they were pretty accurate on it for the most part. Now, I understand that that's proprietary to Prime, so you're not going to see it on NBC. And what NBC has, again, is just sort of a guesstimation. I get it. People are upset about it, but no, it wasn't them trying to convince you to keep watching. It wasn't a tactic to do that. It's not a conspiracy. It's just them being like, hey, this is how much fuel we think he has left. And then they took the graphic down when it was clearly obvious that he was not going to run out of fuel, at least not when they predicted that he would have run out of fuel, and he was able to get to the end of the race. Now, there's a whole lot of other things that go into that about him winning the race, not being able to get past all the other things. We're not talking about that. We're just strictly talking about that fuel remaining graphic. And I guess people didn't understand that. I mean, William Byron's team doesn't even know how much fuel he actually has left in the race car. They know how much fuel went in. They're able to do their calculations off of that. They're able to do their calculations off of how much fuel he's saving in their mind by off throttle time that they're seeing on the SMT data, but they aren't able to actually come up with a clear answer. They're able to kind of pinpoint, hey, we think you're good to this lap. Same thing with Bubba Wallace last week, or the week prior at Indianapolis. Oh, well, he doesn't have enough fuel for a second green-white checker. Okay, again, how much fuel is he saving? Everything that goes into that, and clearly he was able to, do a burnout, win the race, all the things there. So a lot of the times, these are just guesses. They're just strictly guesses and trying to give you X amount of laps that they think they're going to be able to run to, or they will run out somewhere between, lap A and lap B here. But ultimately, it's not a big conspiracy. They're not trying to convince you to keep watching. I know some fans don't like fuel mileage races. I like a fuel mileage race every now and then. I think they're exciting. I think they're exhilarating, especially if they're like a true fuel mileage race where you're like, hey, we are 5 laps short. We're going to try to make it to the end here. All right, screw it. Let's try to do it and make it. And, if somebody runs out, that's like the ultimate thrill. It's like when they cut in from commercial back in the day. For a wreck at Daytona or Talladega, it's just like, bam, this jolt of excitement runs through your body, and you're like, oh my God, it happened again. So yeah, they're not lying to you. It's just a graphic that takes into account, the data that they have available to them, and the calculation gives you a general idea for it. All right, let's talk about some silly season stuff, because the other guy not named Jeff Gluck from The Athletic posted a silly season update, and honestly, it was all things that everybody has pretty much already been talking about for the most part here. The one big story that he led off with was Justin Haley. And I think you, I, and everybody else knows that Justin Haley is definitely going to be on the hot seat. Last year, there was a lot of talk about him taking over the 48 car from Alex Bowman. Those conversations were had. I know people get upset about that and everything like that. There's a lot more to it than just Justin Haley, driving over there. There's some other things that go on behind the scenes. Ultimately, he takes that Spire ride last year. And this year, he's 29th in points. That's an average finish of like 22.3. One top 10 this year. Just a really abysmal season for Justin Haley. Not an improvement over Corey LaJoie. And at this point, putting LaJoie back in the car probably would make more sense, because then they can just pay LaJoie to drive and not just pay him to sit around like he is right now. Now, obviously, he does do work for the team, and he will be in 9 truck races now, or 8 truck races to close out the season here. So Corey LaJoie is going to get back behind the wheel. But yeah, it wasn't like maybe Corey LaJoie wasn't the problem necessarily over here, because Haley hasn't been able to do anything spectacular as well. Now, his average finish actually is better than his teammate Carson Hocevar, who is like a spot lower in average finish, but does have top 5s, does have more top 10s. That's why he's ahead of him in the points. Same with Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell has like a 2-spot advantage in average finish as well. But again, it's just because he's put himself in contention. But for Haley, he is in fact on the hot seat. And as he pointed out in the article, there is a chance that he maybe doesn't finish out the year as well. Obviously, the only really big name driver on the market right now is Daniel Suarez. Is he going to end up in the car? I don't know. I don't know if Suarez is necessarily an improvement over Justin Haley for the most part. I think if you're Spire, maybe you hold on to Haley for a year, or if you get Suarez, it's just for a year, and then you wait to see where you're at the end of 26 going into 27, because there could be some big names available. Obviously, Spire is a team that has invested a lot of money. They would like to make a big splash. They want to see results here. And there are some drivers that they absolutely would love to get in those cars, or in that car rather. But either the asking price is too much, the contracts are too ironclad, or, somebody just isn't available at the moment. But I would recommend keeping an eye on that for the remainder of this season. Then it comes down to Daniel Suarez. Suarez, obviously thinks that there's still going to be a cup opportunity available for him. I have to wait and see, because obviously most of them are taken up at this point, but nothing really concrete there to talk about. Obviously, Caden Honeycutt's name came up last week. This was not included in the Athletic article. It is expected that he's going to go over to Tricon. I have heard some mixed things about where Corey Heim could possibly be at in 2026. His name has come up for an Xfinity Series ride. We'll see if that's where he does, in fact, end up at as well. But yeah, I think you got to move him up next year. And I think 2311 Racing is going to do right by him. And then in 27, put him in a cup car. That's what his contract at least says. So we'll see how that goes. And also, obviously, this is all pending 2311's lawsuit against NASCAR as well. Then you have Dodge. Now let's talk about the Dodge thing. It was mentioned in this article that there is a Cup Series team that is talking to Dodge. That Cup Series team appears to be Kaulig Racing. Kaulig has had conversations with Dodge. There's been conversations about them possibly doing the Truck Series program as well next year. Nothing set in stone, nothing to report about yet, anything like that. But that's the rumors that's been floating around the garage area for a little bit of time at this point. So we'll wait and see how all of that plays out. Dodge has had conversations with multiple people within the industry, people that maybe don't even own teams right now as well. They will have trucks in Daytona. They will have drivers there. It's not going to be Caden Honeycutt, despite what the internet seemed to think. Also, don't expect it to be Junior Motorsports becoming a Dodge team, which some fans are desperately trying to make happen. But yeah, that's where that one currently stands at as well. Some talk about Corey Day possibly being full-time in that Hendrick 17 car in 2026. Have heard that as well. Wait and see on that. It would be obviously a big step up, but Hendrick has a lot of faith in Corey Day, and we'll see if that's how it plays out for them. But right now, silly season is going to start to tick up on the Xfinity side of things and on the truck side of things as the season starts to close out here. Cup silly season still is pretty quiet outside of maybe that Spire ride being open. Obviously, everybody expects and knows Connor Zelich is going to be in that 99 car at Trackhouse next year. Expect that to be announced this week, it seems like. Now, I don't know if they're going to remain with a 99 or if they're going to change numbers for next year. We'll wait and see what the decision is there. But for the most part, there's some silly season stuff floating around. We'll wait and see. The other one that people keep wanting to bring up all the time is Legacy Motor Club buying out Haas Factory Team, Haas Factory Team becoming Toyota's. That one has been floating around for about 2 weeks now as well. Obviously, Legacy's got a lawsuit going on with Rick Ware Racing. I don't know if they want to take that to trial or how that's all going to play out here. Obviously, merging with Haas Factory would solve a lot of their issues. Jimmy Johnson at Legacy Motor Club team taking on that Nighthead Capital has certainly, given them some buying power. They are determined to get that third charter. We'll see if it's going to happen. But yeah, that's kind of where silly season stands at right now. Some things that could happen, some things that couldn't happen. Silly season. That's what sort of the name of the game is there. So let me know in the comments what you think about NASCAR not increasing horsepower for 2026, the NBC Fuel remaining graphic, as well as silly season. Where do you think people are going to go? Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.